And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30. What up, folks? Midlife crisis here. We're freaking excited like usual. Damn, it's good to be alive. We got CryptoTitans here today. We're gonna have an awesome conversation. Got my boy Maddie Mintz, my best friend for life. How you doing, dog?
Dude, loving it. Today is so off work tomorrow, so it's like a Friday, and super pumped because we got a lot of stuff going on for that as well. But dude, this is gonna be a good show. I love when things come together last minute. Those are some of the best moments, and I think we're gonna have a good time.
Dude, I absolutely do too. Thank you for this, the handful of people that are tuning in. I know it'll go larger as we go on, just because we are a little earlier than normal. But we're gonna have a blast, and let's just get right to it, man. We have the honor of having CryptoTitans on today. We are talking to Ads, one of the person that has helped build this from the ground up. But before Ads says hi and I say hi to Ads, couple fun facts about Ads. If you like popcorn, Ads loves popcorn. So you might wanna chase them down after the show if you're a popcorn lover. And then 2, animal lover. That got my heart. I have a mini golden doodle. I freaking love the thing to death. but Ads has a Jack Russell pug mix that apparently is a doppelganger
That was-
when it comes to personality. Ads, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. So excited to be here. Thank you so much for having us on the show today. Feeling good. Saying to you earlier, we arrived in Lisbon. So in Lisbon, having a blast and excited to chat to you today.
Oh, dude, I cannot wait to just hear about this journey, and we'll get right to it because, like I said offline, I've worked for massive corporations, and it's no secret now that you are tied to a big corporation, and I am just fascinated that you were able to start for a project in such a new and unique space from the ground up. So, with that being said, world famous midlife crisis question Ads, how did you get to the seat you're sitting in today? Please give us Star Wars episode 1, 2, and 3. We're looking for all the juice, and that will allow us to have a fantastic conversation.
All the juice. All right, I love it. Yeah, the journey here has been long. It's evolved, quite a bit, over the last few years to where we are today. But I'll tell you about myself and my journey. So, firstly, I'm English. I'm from London, born and raised. Background Nigerian. Um, I finished schooling. My background personally is in finance. Mostly in the investment banking sector. Um, have a master's in finance and corporate law. And I just personally loved crypto. I, being in London, moved to Europe and was working in Europe in the banking sector. And I, on a whim, and when I say on a whim, like totally on a whim, moved to San Francisco, moved to the Bay Area. Moved to the Bay Area because I wanted to get more involved in tech. So literally, and very much to my personality, packed 2 suitcases, um, packed the dog, and moved out to San Francisco.
Ads,
And I
ads,
got
real
very
quick. I'm sorry to interrupt. I think your notifications might be on because we can
yeah.
hear notifications. Do you know how to mute them?
Let me turn them off.
I just, after a long conversation with that constantly going off, might get some people. If you go to settings, notifications, and then under sounds, just disable all notification sounds.
All right. Okay, so maybe it's this. All right. I think we're good.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to make sure we got that nipped in the butt there. So you were talking about you moved to San Francisco, you took your dog with you.
Yes. Took the dog, moved to San Francisco to get more involved in the tech scene. And I got very lucky when I got there because I started to get involved in the VC space. And whilst I was getting involved in the VC space, I actually got connected to a guy called Tim Draper. So I started working kind of as an analyst in venture capital. And Tim Draper, he's a like world famous, legendary VC, and he's very into crypto. Like one of the early kind of advocates of the crypto space, especially around Bitcoin. That was the guy who bought all the Bitcoin from Silk Road after it got seized. And
Oh my
he
Lord.
basically, yeah, like crazy, crypto head. And he basically got me into crypto. Like that's where my journey really started. When I think about the Web3 space and where I am now, it really started there because there was someone that I was working with that was so bullish on the space, right? Before anybody was,
Mm-hmm.
um, taking risks with their own like personal capital, taking risks with their reputation, talking about crypto all the time. And that's why I started to really dig into it. And it wasn't like from a financial point of view that I was digging into it. It wasn't, even necessarily at, right at the beginning from an investment point of view. It was like, wow, there's this new like tech that people are talking about that could really
Yeah.
change the world, right? So it was, it was such a wild time then. So I got into crypto there, and then as other things, my journey with crypto, my love for crypto, like remained, and I personally just delved into it on the side, um, and I was able to keep it up, like personally, like I had friends that started to get into crypto at the time as well, and that kind of morphed into NFTs. It morphed into NFTs in the Web3 space.
Yeah.
All of this was from like a personal point of view. I wasn't in this space professionally, and then fast forwarding a little bit more and like kind of how that got me into AB and Bev and everything that we're doing now is that I can still hear my
Yeah, I think I can still hear some notifications.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mine are off for sure. Maddie, yours are off?
Yep.
All right. I really think we should be good now.
Okay.
Okay.
No, it's totally
Yeah.
fine. I'm glad you heard them.
Windows open everywhere.
AB.
Okay, so kind of,
Yeah. Do you remember where you were?
yes, I do. So kind of how that got me to AB and Bev and kind of where we are now. So I was in San Francisco in the Bay. I'd moved on from working in the VC space, but I was kind of in the innovation space, looking at emerging tech, and Web3 was one of those emerging techs that I was thinking about. And again, personally, I was still very much into crypto, and that had transitioned into some more around NFTs. And then I was connected with AB and Bev, and I was actually at a full transparency, for how this journey really took shape. I was kind of at a point where I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't think corporate life was for me at all. And if you could see me, if you could interact, with us, our team, I'm not really a corporate person,
Right.
in many ways, right? A lot of people see me and they're like, "How are you in corporate?"
Right.
So I didn't really think it was the space for me, and it's not where I wanted to take my journey. I wanted to potentially start my own thing at the time. So I kind of like started to move that way to do my own thing. And it was all very serendipitous, really, when I look back on like the last year and a half, because I'd made this decision to like move away from the corporate space, and I got connected to somebody within ABI, like very high and very senior within the company, that honestly like just changed my whole perspective on what Web2 companies can do within Web3, because they were so bullish on the space and they were so high within AB and Bev, and they just had such conviction that is something that we should be doing. So I got connected to this person, because they had heard that I was really into NFTs and crypto, and they kind of reached out and said, let's go on a call, let's start to talk about what we can do. So we had a conversation, and the way I described this conversation, it was like 45 minutes of I felt like I was just talking to. I wasn't even talking to AB and Bev. I didn't even know who I was talking to like during that 45 minutes. And at the end of it, the result was like, I knew I wanted to stay within AB and Bev. I knew I wanted to work under this person, and I knew that I wanted to follow them in the journey that they were going, or what they were even potentially thinking about within Web3 and AB and Bev. So with that, fast forward, a couple of months later, we're kind of packing up our lives and moving to New York, to think about how AB and Bev can really jump into the Web3 space, things that we can do, initiatives that we can do, with the backing and support of someone pretty senior within the company that we knew could really make a difference in this space if we did it the right way. Um, and it was like through these conversations, through the small team that was put together, that we started to work on this CryptoTitans project, and like transition to where we are today with it.
That is an amazing story, and we like to give critique on. I felt like we got. I don't know. I think we actually got episode 2 and 3, but maybe a little bit of 1. Maddie, what are you thinking there?
I feel we did not get episode 1. We're gonna have to dive into episode 1 for sure.
We need to go back to episode 1. So I'm interested in, and feel free to go back as far as you're comfortable, but you did start off of kind of like what you did in college. How about your, like, just kind of more childhood upbringing? Like, were you close with your family? Did you play sports? Like, what were you interested in when you were a kid? What made you tick?
Yeah, no, it's so great. I wasn't sure how far back we were gonna go.
Oh,
Right,
we're ready. This is
Yeah, this is
all you, and we're here to just soak it all up.
all right, I love it. Okay, so I guess I'll give you all the scoop and the down low on ads. So I am, born and raised in England. Both my parents Nigerian, and I am actually one of 7. I'm the youngest child of 7.
Wow, big family.
Yeah, big family. My parents were pretty strict with us, and we were raised like very much along the line of like academics and excelling there.
Yep.
So at school, I love school. I was that person that loved going to school every day and loved getting good grades. Very very into sports as well as a child. Still am actually as an adult as well. But yes, like our home life was like very centered around like work, and like my parents like both work, like long-standing careers. Like my mother's a doctor, my father was an entrepreneur, so we were like very like stable kind of career focused family, but quite traditionally like Nigerian as well, like, in many ways too. So yeah, as a child, I was actually very into computers.
Okay.
So when I look back on my childhood now, and the things that I was very into, it was actually coding.
Really?
Which is really funny to me now, because it's actually something that I almost forgot about, that I used to do a lot when I was a child. And now as an adult, I like, even when I talk about it, it feels like it's so far into where I am now. But it was like every birthday, every Christmas, it was like a computer of some sort.
Yeah.
That I would get. I was terrified of all animals as a child. I was not an overly social child. Like I'm like actually quite an introvert, and that was through my childhood as well, and into my adulthood as well. That feeling of being an introvert. But yeah, very very close to my family. Like one of 7. Yeah, all very close as siblings, all close in age too.
Yeah.
There's only about like a year on average between us. So we're all very very close, spread around the world, but maintain that solid kind of foundation.
And so as you progress through, let's say, in the US, we call it elementary school and middle school and high school. When you're trying to figure out, what do I want to do with my life? Like, you're coding, what's influencing you there? And like, take us through kind of your mindset when you're getting out of the high school, and you're saying, is it you listening to your father or your mother, or kind of what's going through your mindset there?
Yeah. So in our household, we're 5 girls and 2 boys, and we are very strong female-led family.
Hmm.
And the voice of my mother is very strong in my
Yes.
family as well.
I think in most
Even though
households it is actually.
yeah, um, even though my mother is actually quite an introvert as well and
Yeah.
very quiet, yeah, very commanding voice and presence and influence really on who we are all now. And as a child, had such a strong influence on what I thought I wanted to do in the direction that I was going in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people they say this about their parents all the time, right? But like, my mother, without a doubt, the smartest person, I know, and she she actually really wanted me to go into medicine, and I wanted to too. I wanted to follow in the same footsteps that she did, and that was actually my focus for a lot of my childhood. Is
Mm.
that's where I thought I would end up going down that journey. I was really into science as a child as well. Like I was the kid who had a science lab in the backyard. I was
Yep.
really into science.
And you're
Um,
coding, man. You're doing it
yeah,
all.
I was like that kid, like and,
Yeah.
and a really like shy, quiet kid.
Yeah.
Again, which is really funny because if you see me now, I don't know if that comes off like that.
Oh, we'll
Um,
get to that because I already have questions around that. Don't worry.
but yeah, it was the influence of my mother for sure was so strong in my childhood about the direction I wanted to go. I thought I was going to go into medicine, and then I've I've always been the kind of person that is able to pick up things quite easily,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
pick up skills quite easily, which when you're a child is quite challenging because then it means that it leaves you feeling like you're not really sure of the direction to go in. So
Mm.
I felt like that as a child, and especially as I was going through school,
Yeah.
there was like so many different areas that I thought, oh, I can actually do that pretty well. Maybe I'll do that, and I was kind of left like, I don't really know now what I'm gonna do, like because I could do all these things, right? Too many choices, and not in a
Mhm.
way of like I was so amazing at everything, but just like in the sense of there were a lot of choices on the
Sure.
table, and I really didn't know which direction would be the right one.
Yeah.
Um, and I ultimately ended up going like down the financial route, which I'll talk about later. But it was very much through school. I was like, I changed my mind a lot about the direction I was going to go in.
Hmm. Now, let me ask you this. You said your father was an entrepreneur. And
Yeah,
that can mean a lot of different things. Was this like a traditional business owner, small business owner, like corporate side? I mean, what kind of entrepreneur was your father?
yeah. Not the corporate side, like self-made.
Self-made?
Gotcha.
Is
Okay.
how I like. Yeah, self-made is how I like to describe it. Um, so I was saying both my parents are Nigerian. So my father did a lot of trading and business with Africa
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
and with Nigeria as well.
Mm-hmm.
We actually spent a lot of time in Nigeria as children
Mm-hmm.
too,
Hmm.
and he was very much self-made. Very, very different from my mother. They're like polar opposites.
Yeah.
My mother and father, and kind of how they established themselves. Um, yeah, but he was into like they had actually maybe six or seven businesses, ranging from like
Yeah.
restaurants into like travel and like airline. Like there was a lot of different things actually that my father was
Got
into.
it.
It
See,
was like
and
one.
what I like about this is you're seeing you're a product of both, right? I mean, you have this strong mother figure who's incredibly smart, a doctor, and that influence, you obviously excelled in academia. You said you liked school. It's interesting to see all of that, and like they're almost opposite ends, right? Which is this order, play it safe, do the right thing, get good education, get an established profession like doctor or something like that, or whether it might be attorney or something like that. And then you have this, I own six businesses, I'm willing to, whatever it takes, self-made entrepreneur. And it's interesting because that path worked for you, but yet you weren't satisfied in corporate America, and there was something pulling you saying, wait a second, I don't feel like I fit here. And I just wonder
Yeah,
how much of that was the your father's influence, that maybe, even though your mom was such a powerful one, it's interesting to see both of those kind of tugging at you. Do you agree with that? Do you feel like that's maybe an accurate depiction?
I think that's very accurate, and that's even something that we'll talk about amongst myself and my siblings, right? About this
Sure.
duality of our parents, right? And
Right.
like the amount that we have within us. And it's so my father passed away when we were young,
Mm,
and my mother is quite risk averse, like as a character and as a human, she's quite risk averse, and
Yeah.
she's quite quiet. Um, and as we got older, all of us are not. We are like quite, like, we are like such risk takers.
yeah.
Yeah.
We don't follow rules like at all.
Yeah.
And that is definitely the influence of my father, because that is who he was, like, down to a T.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because even my mother says it, like
Yeah.
in all of us, she says, "Oh, it's so interesting, like how different you all are to me, and you do things that I would never think about doing, and it's not coming from me, right?"
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
No,
But it would appear,
go ahead.
but you definitely got a work ethic from both of them.
Oh,
Yeah, because
100%.
and that's really cool too. And I think that plays a lot into it because when you were just talking about that, even if you didn't say what your parents did, just the way you were talking about your life, it would be easy to guess that, they were along the lines of what they were. Because a lot of times, our parents are such a big influence when we're young. And when we see people who are smart, hardworking, you know, uh, uh, productive and making things happen, it's hard not to adopt a lot of those qualities because you see the success that it leads in life. You're getting a good blueprint on how to make it work. And so it's I think that's really cool, and it's neat to see that pay dividends even where you are today and what you're doing now. But yeah, when you say risk, not being afraid of risk. I mean, being able to just move from London to San Francisco on a whim, and even being in crypto in general, right? There's a little bit of degen in all of us for being here, so it's kind
Yeah,
of cool.
and just to touch on that a little bit, and it's something that I reflect on a lot, is around, like, I feel extremely fortunate to be in the position that I'm in. You know, like you talked about moving from Europe to the Bay, and like just going with two suitcases, and people kind of say to me a lot, "Wow, that's so brave." And really, I just think it's fortunate, like, to
Sure.
know that, because ultimately, I did it because I also knew that if something went wrong, I have a backup plan. Like, I have a
Yeah.
home that I can go to. Like,
You got a
there's a
spare
path
parachute.
out, and that makes me feel extremely fortunate, for the position that I'm in right now. Um, I know, like, you obviously don't know what I look like, but like as a black female in this space as well, it's it's I feel extremely lucky, like for the doors that have been opened for me getting into this space,
Yeah.
for the opportunities that I've had.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm extremely fortunate for it all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's that to layer onto this conversation. One thing that you said to me that was really interesting that I've never heard anybody verbalize this way is you pick things up quickly when you were young, which actually puts you at a disadvantage because you didn't know where to go. Like, that's really interesting to me. I don't think I've ever heard somebody say it that way. And then to layer on what Matt's saying about your parents, um, and then I could go on for days about I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, totally upended my life, and that is the scariest, best thing I ever did, and I'm assuming you probably say the same. So
Yeah.
there's something to be said for this, just kind of change as a constant thing that comes up with success stories or people that are doing interesting things. Um, I wanted to get back to kind of your personal story, as I think it's a good segue into why did you decide on finance, right? You have this really interesting childhood, and you're starting to develop, but you're like so just fascinated with all these different things. When you get to college or go to university, is it a product of like you're like, man, I just need to decide on something, or what kind of steered
Yeah.
you in
What
the
drew you to
direction
finance?
of finance, or the path that you took,
Yeah, it was a little bit of that, of like, I need to pick a direction,
right?
that I can go. Um, I So I was, in this space of like, okay, I'm not sure if I don't want to go down the medical route. And then for a long time, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. So I was kind of going down that route. And then it was like, or do I go down the finance route? I think it was the path that I found or that I felt could open up the most possibilities for me later. So I felt like it was like me sort of making a choice without making too much of a choice. And I thought
Man.
if I went down the legal route, okay, that's me saying, okay, I actually really want to be a lawyer. The medical route, obviously, that's like a commitment. Um, so I just felt like it would expand on my skill sets, tremendously, and still give me flexibility later. Even if I wanted to go down the legal route, that's kind of how I
Yeah.
felt.
Now, was that something that you came to yourself, or did you have outside influence, maybe from siblings, family, or whatnot, that also kind of helped you with that, or was that just you coming to that conclusion yourself?
Yeah, it's kind of a conclusion that I came to myself. Um,
Wow.
my family, they're quite like everyone's doing their own thing. We're all in quite different fields.
Yeah.
But one thing that my parents really pushed us with, like I said earlier, was academics, right? So everybody's the academic top, like let's say that
Yeah.
they've leveled up for sure. And I my mother, at the time, my father had passed at this point. She was quite trusting of the decisions that we were making around academics. Like at that point, I think we'd kind of, or for me, that I'd proved myself in terms of
Yeah.
like,
I was gonna say you
I'm
gave
going
her
to
no
be
reason to distrust, for
yeah.
sure.
So I think she was quite like hands off with that decision. Like of course, like conversations were had like in the
Sure.
family, siblings, etc. Um, but it was a conclusion that I came to myself, and at the time as well, I I moved right after I finished, my studies, and not to skip into another part of the story,
No, no,
but
no. This is good. I think it's a good segue.
yeah, just to give it a bit of flavor, I guess, about like some of my mindset around that too. I moved I moved away from London right after I finished my masters, like right after,
Mhm.
and that was quite an intentional thing. Um, I'm one of seven. My siblings and I, like, we're together all the time. So I
Yeah.
like whenever I go back to London and I'm with my partner, my partner's always like, "You don't have any friends here because you just hang out with your family all the time." Because my family, they're my friends, right? My siblings are my friends.
Right.
Yeah.
But I definitely wanted some independence at the time. So I was sort of in that mindset and through that journey of like making my own decisions too at that time.
Well, I mean, I think it's very telling when you say that you arrived at that conclusion on your own. And I mean, Mikey, I'm curious your thoughts on this too, but to sit there and be at the age between high school and college, and to make a decision like I'm going to go into finance because this is going to lead to the most opportunities. That's such a forward thinking decision that, quite frankly, like I didn't have that type of vision. I studied
No.
aerospace engineering because I enjoyed it. I was good at science, I was good at physics, and I liked math. And it was hard. I knew, like, okay, it was there's career options there, but it's a very niche market, right? And it's like, if I and it's interesting because I that's one of the things, if I could tell myself back at that age now what I know now, it would be get something that's broader. And it's just amazing that you were thinking like that at that age, because that is I mean, because you really, like you said, you were good at basically whatever you put your mind to, right? If you wanted to do it, you could have done any of those things, whether it be medicine or lawyer or whatnot. But by having a background in finance and corporate law, I mean, you're right. I mean, you're literally every company is a possibility at that point, and that's it's just very forward thinking. I think that says a lot about your ability to make decisions, and I'm gonna peel that back a little bit more when we start getting into the project and kind of closer to that. But and your decision to go to Web3, but I think it's telling. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good insight. Listen, Maddie and I say this all the time. We're older for the space. we're 41, and we deal with a lot of people in their early 30s, or even mid 20s, or people like yourself that just have made really good decisions, rational decisions when they're young. I went to college because that's what I was told I should have done, right? I moved across the country because I had my angel of a wife and a person who's just stronger than I at the time really convinced me that it was the right thing to do. I would have never done that on my own. So just another way to say total props to you to having that wherewithal at that age to say, hey, I'm going to
Yeah.
make this decision because I think it's going to better my life in the future. And I think, again, that's a product of, um, I went through, my midlife crisis was getting sick with a lot of mental health stuff. And one of the things that I come out of that with is your family and friends and your support network is probably the most paramount thing you have in life. And it goes to show that you were able to have that
Yeah.
mindset and make that decision probably because of your strong family upbringing and connection that you had. What are your thoughts about that, Ads?
I mean, I, firstly, thank you just for the comments and the reflection, on
Sure.
some of the things that I'm saying.
Of course.
Um, but I think, 100%. Yeah, I like my family, my support system in every way. Like
Yeah.
being one of seven and like being in that environment with that many people, every day that you can count on, um, was is it's such an experience that again I'm so grateful to have. Not everybody's close to their family, not everybody's close to their siblings, but like
Hmm.
we are such a tight knit group of people. I said my father passed away when I was younger, and that was like a very like pivotal moment for all of us, like coming together as well, and focusing and prioritizing on how we wanted to function as a family and how we wanted to support each other going forward.
Right.
Um, and like my mother, like amazing like figure for us, amazing role model, um,
Yeah.
trusting in our decisions and our direction in life, and it's definitely like shown in who we are
Yeah.
today.
I mean, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, obviously, your mom's has to be a mammy, raising 7 kids, and as you said, all not just 7 kids, but 7 kids who really thrived academically and are succeeding in their respective fields. Um, you know, m- Parents are happy to have 1 or 2 kids be able to pull that off. To
Right.
have seven, that really is a testament to everything you're saying. And I mean, it's one of those things like it's easy to say, but it's harder to demonstrate, and I think it's been demonstrated, which is really cool. That's
Yeah.
rare.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd love to push the conversation into. So
Yep.
we understood. Now we understand. And by the way, episode 1, fantastic.
Yeah.
We already got people in chat saying you cannot pass up episode 1, and we're glad that we didn't. Yeah, our community it likes, I think, kind of the episode 1, 2, 3 format. So really appreciate that. Now we're at the point where you've decided on finance. I mean, we don't have to get too detailed into everyone knows that we go to school, you learn finance, right? And now you're getting out. Um, Unless there's anything interesting that you want to note before you decide to take 2 boxes and your dog and go to San Francisco, I'd love to talk about just that experience, what you were going through, and looking back, what are maybe 1 to 2 things you learned the most from just kind of picking your life up and going?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those years when I was working in the banking sector, and I was out in Luxembourg at the
Hmm.
time, so I'd kind of moved to the continent and from London, and I was definitely in an exploratory phase of my life.
Right.
in through many facets. When
Okay.
I say that word, and I it was very clear to me at that point that I wasn't cut out to work in a corporate environment
Right.
in the way that it was being delivered to me then.
Sure. And let me
Um,
pause you real quick. Was it the environment didn't match you, or were you realizing you were changing and that didn't match the environment?
yeah, I'm not sure. It's like a chicken and an egg thing.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
I'm not even sure, which one, but just none of it worked.
Got it.
I was miserable. I felt like I couldn't, like it's like little things, for me. Like, I'm not supposed to wear smart clothes every day. I'm not supposed
Right.
to look like, right? I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be able to wear sneakers if I want to, 24/7,
Yes.
right?
Got it.
I need to be in an environment where I can have very casual conversations, like where I can, laugh with people that I work with, where I can have friendships, with people at every level, up and below, right, and cross those boundaries and still maintain, respect or hierarchy, like within a working
Sure.
environment. I just didn't feel that I was getting
Right.
at the time, and I felt so stifled, like personally,
Got it.
at that point in time when I actually made the decision to move to San Francisco.
Hmm.
Um, it was it was a time when, as all great stories start, I was going through a breakup at the time as well, and
Yeah.
it was like,
Yeah.
I think I need to just switch some things up right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Um,
I know
and
exactly how that is.
yeah, and it was just it was very clear to me that the environment I was in, I was just not comfortable in it anymore, and I didn't feel like myself, and I couldn't sustain that. I
Right.
didn't want to sustain that, but it took me a minute to get to that conclusion. Like, there was like maybe like 6 to 12 months of being like, something's not right, and I don't know what it is or why it's not right.
Interesting.
And then,
And I
yeah,
love that you say that though, because it's a great analogy for this space. And it's a great analogy that Maddie and I talk about a lot too, right? Like we're convinced um, we're on the right path with our business, and we're convinced that things are going to pan out in the long run. But in this space, you see day in, day out, the now, super fast paced. And a lot of it's bullshit, right? The people that are really
yeah,
going to be winning at the end of the day in this space are the people that are doing, the hard work when no one really gives a shit about NFTs, right? And that's the same analogy that you're using, that you knew something was wrong, but there's just so many times, and we just don't, I think, say it enough, that people just need to slow down and be okay with time, and time taking a little bit for you to figure stuff out. What are your thoughts there?
yeah. I mean, it's it's so much better now than it's ever been, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, for sure, and like that is such a joy to see. Like, just a little bit more awareness around the topics in general, and like people taking time for themselves and trying to figure things out, understand more complexities within what we think our behaviors around some of these thoughts and emotions.
Right.
Um, but if I reflect back, and like even now, there's so many points in my life that I look back on now, and I wish, wow, like I wish somebody had just said, just take a minute, just take the time to like really think about how you feel about this.
Right.
Just take the time to reflect on these moments. I think it's hugely important, and something that I feel very, like, I guess, bullish on is
Hmm.
how people are really starting to adopt that more,
Yeah.
and practices and tools. I think it's hugely important.
Yeah. Absolutely. Maddie, any thoughts there?
No, I like that. This is a fascinating conversation. I mean, just as a random kind of side question, going from corporate community to Web3 community, what is it about the Web3 community that you love that certainly was not present in the corporate community? I'm just curious your answer to that, like what you'll choose.
Great question.
Oh yeah, it's a really fantastic question. I think it's the freedom
Mm,
in quite a few ways. Like
Okay.
the freedom of thought, around what you can do. Like so like the applications of things that you're working with, right? You're not confined in any kind of box, right? When you're in like corporate spaces, you're constantly confined by things
Yes.
that you don't decide, right? But they impact
Yes.
your everyday, and you have no control over it at all. And quite often you don't even have visibility into it at all.
Hmm.
Um,
I agree.
so that freedom has been really really nice. I think the freedom of expression has also been very nice coming into Web3. People are themselves. Like it's the most genuine space
ooh,
that
I
I
like
have
that.
been part of. Um, like it's a really interesting thought, and I'm sure we're going to get into this later around the space, but like as with kind of in a corporate setting where we are now, we have to be like professional to some degree, right? And AB InBev
Yeah.
is not the most professional company, like by any means. When we look at a lot of other traditional Web2 companies, right?
Right.
Um, but there's a certain like level of professionalism, and like because of that, there is also like a hint of like you don't know how genuine like conversations might be or connections might be, right? There's always going to
Hmm.
be that level within these kinds of spaces that you have to navigate, right?
Yep.
But when you go into Web3, like no one cares. People just say what they want to say
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they want to say it.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a love hate thing, right? Because it's so different to anything that I've experienced, right? But at the same
Yeah.
time, like, you have to respect it too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's
Yeah.
been
People abuse it. I think that was beautifully said, and I would tend to agree with you on that. So thank you for that insight. I think that's great. I always, there's clips of me on YouTube saying, the first I was an original Hate Beast mod and seeing that thing blow up the first couple months to me is exactly what you were saying. It's just so magical to see all of these people. And it wasn't because in the beginning, it wasn't because they were going to make a ton of money. They genuinely were just interested in being in the community and learning about each other.
yeah,
And in real life, half of these people would probably be punching each other in the face. So, uh,
Or or not punching each other in the face per se, but I
they would
actually
not
like
they would
ads how
not
you
be
said it.
fighting. They would not be
Yeah.
talking.
But no, but ads, you said it well. There's so many things that conscious or subconsciously affect how we interact with people. And you can
True.
name all kinds of things, right? There's people who are the same and people who are different, people who have and people who don't have, people who, and we our brain does these quick amygdala decisions to decide essentially, as much as we're told as a child, don't judge a book by its cover, we do that. And just like you said, the difference between wearing sneakers and wearing dress shoes or business attire, if you walk into a corporate environment and you're not dressed a certain way, people will look at you differently. And it's immediate, and there's so many little nuances that can play into it. And one of the things for me that I love about the Web3 space is the anonymity, right? I mean, obviously, Mike and I have a show, people see us, so we are what we are. Um, but when you're in Discord and you're in a chat and you're in Discord, specifically what Mike was talking about during that hate beast time, and there's here's a 500,000 people going nuts. You have no idea who you're talking to, and so it forces you to ask questions about character and who you are, and you get to know people. It forces you to get to know who they actually are, not all the stuff that we pretend people are. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And it's interesting because you really get to see the cream rise to the top, um, based on real objective skills or abilities rather than these perceived things. Rather than the fact that they just simply dressed really nice and they were smooth talkers. You know what I mean? We all know people who have been promoted to high level positions in management simply because of that, not because of competency. They just filled a good role in what they were doing, and that I'm not knocking that. That's just the way the world is. But it's nice to have a space where it's it's as close to almost a pure meritocracy that we're going to get, and it's interesting how that plays out and why certain people tend to gravitate towards it and why others tend to steer away from it. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point. That is something that I do really appreciate about it as well. Like, if I guess if I'm honest about it, right? Like, it's something that affects me, like, personally a lot.
Yeah,
In the situations that I'm in the spaces I'm in, with how I look. This is like it's like a general conversation of topic in my mind, right?
sure.
Um, so 100%, right? And this does not happen within AB and Bev, and I want to be like really clear about this. It's never happened to me, like the experience I'm about to say.
Oh, sure.
But I've had people say to me, in the Bay when I was living in San Francisco, I've had people say to my face like, "Oh, but like you dress like that, so like clearly people don't take you seriously when you're when you're at work,
Mm,
right?"
Right.
And it's like it's
yep.
just really funny because it's like, dude, like you have no idea what I do on a day to day, right?
Yep. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's Web3 for me is like signifying like this change, or like it's a very visual or
Hmm.
very real representation of like the change that we're starting to see and the shift in the mindset that people are
Yeah.
having. It's like we haven't quite transitioned over, which is why it's not the majority yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Correct.
in this transition phase, but I think I really like and hope that it represents actually a future state
Yes.
in which we conduct ourselves.
And I
Well
think
said.
that's why a lot of people are into it, right? Because,
Yeah.
applications just not in relationships, but finance and how we deal
Mm,
obviously with money and how does that impact
Yeah.
nations that can't afford to do certain things now if we level the playing field more, right?
right.
And it can be a
You
beautiful
bet.
thing. I want to be cognizant of time. We still have like an hour to 50, or more like 50 minutes. Fascinating, fantastic conversation already. I want to jump to because you still said a couple interesting things that I do not want to pass up because I think it'll be really cool for our audience and anybody to watch this video in the future here. So you make the jump, right? And you're now in San Francisco. You go there, you're in hardcore Silicon Valley venture capital firm, and you meet Tim. And so
Mm,
you have a person who has this almost vision of already and way even before now, which we still say now is early, how big this is going to be. I
yeah,
would love to hear about that experience in kind of some life lessons you learned from. I'm assuming at that point he was in essence a little bit of a mentor to you for a while. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
would love to hear about that experience.
Yeah.
yeah. That was such an interesting experience actually, where I really got to learn from Tim because I mean, he's amazing at what he does, just generally, right? As someone,
Yeah.
if you like respecting someone in their field, right? As a VC,
Hmm.
amazing investments, right? So that has been such a pleasure to have witnessed that, and be a part of that with him. Um, Tim is it's interesting, right? Because that space and like learning with Tim is also like the opposite of me and like
Hmm.
what I ultimately like wanted to represent and like what I thought of that space at the time, of the VC space at the time, right? I like
Hmm.
found it like hugely elitist. So like as with many things in my life, I had a love-hate relationship to that space as
Right.
well, right?
Yeah.
People I was working with too.
Yeah, and I was
And
real quick. I think I'm interested in that is like how do you define Tim as a person? Like, what were, maybe some strengths, some weaknesses? Like, what was that? What was this? Who is this person that you were working with? Can you like visualize that for us a little bit?
Yeah, so just wildly passionate, and so convinced of the value of crypto, of like Bitcoin blockchain, so convinced. And it was so early that he was really talking about the space. And it wasn't even so much that he was into it, because there were other people that were into it, but he was so publicly into it. Like always talking about it, every opportunity that he was like in a public setting, he'd be like talking about blockchain, trying to get people involved. Like I said, he was buying the Bitcoin on Silk Road. It felt like it was as if it was, you see people or you have friends that like they will take any extra money they have and put it into like this hobby, right? Like any extra money will go into this hobby. Like
Yeah.
that's what it felt like with Tim, right? Obviously, like his extra money is a lot more than regular than everyone else. But
Yeah.
that's what it felt. It felt like everything, like extra, any risk was going into Bitcoin and blockchain, and it was pretty electric. Just his conviction for it. Like there's been a couple of people and points in my life, one of them being now and one of them being with Tim, where I have had the pleasure to work with people that are so convinced of what they're doing, that it's just unbelievable to work with them. And that's what it's been. That's what it was like with Tim, in the beginning. Him as a character, if you've kind of read anything about him, he's like larger than life. He's quite loud. Right? He's a loud person. And he's an eccentric person as well. He's really tall. Right? So he's quite like he's quite dominating as a person because he's loud and he's tall.
Yeah.
But yeah, and yeah, very intelligent too, and fun. A lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's interesting to me is as you're saying all of this, did he fit the typical venture capital, crypto mold? Was there something unique about him? Because a lot in my experience and a lot of people on the show, what always interesting to me is a lot of the really successful people that we talk to are insanely humble and kind of simple, but that doesn't mean that that's always the case.
Yeah.
How was Tim when it came to that stuff?
He is such a successful VC, and he comes from a long line of VCs.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's
So
third generation, right?
yeah, he's a Draper.
Yeah.
Like he is like Silicon Valley embodied in a person.
Right, right.
And him in the crypto space, actually, I I think like made a lot of sense. Like it, like not that's not the right word. It was. It felt it felt quite natural, I guess, because he's a risk taker. He's talking about a technology when people aren't talking about that technology. Right? He's being bullish on something when not everybody's being bullish on it. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is really a hallmark of like actually very successful VCs.
Right.
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 So he was like the person who's like all in on Tesla, like early,
Yep.
like really, really early.
Yep.
So it actually like felt quite natural that he was really pushing for this space.
Yeah.
And then subsequently because of that, it also felt like, wow, this feels like a thing.
Right.
Because of that. Yeah.
No, that makes sense, and he is probably an example of, and it makes sense now that Maddie said, third generation. He's been around it for a long time. So him to embody what you would think a VC, Silicon Valley person would be, totally makes sense. I think moving on, kind of getting more into the Web3, and then we can go into the project. Before we get into, well, actually, I think this is a perfect segue. So from Tim and that experience, What did you kind of like sit on or learn from that experience to take into you in your experience now, which is launching CryptoTitans for In-Bev? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. Takeaway. You know, I think it was about being comfortable taking chances.
Mm,
So, you know, I had moved to San Francisco. I had moved on a whim, and I had said that I moved because I felt as though I wasn't quite in the right place, doing the right thing.
right.
Um, when I got to San Francisco, when I got to the States, I actually felt like, oh, this is actually the place I'm supposed to be right now. Um, like geographically, I felt like I had made the right decision to move to the US away from my family. I was so far from my family at that point, like London, San Francisco, and but yeah, my biggest takeaway like through that whole phase, you know, being the babe and working in San Francisco is like just being comfortable taking risks for things that you believe in.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that's a great insight. Is there anything in particular about more Web3 philosophies or crypto philosophies that you learned from that time? Or was it really just a product of like, hey, I understand now the potential of this, even though it seems risky, I'm rolling with it because I know the power of it? Or was there anything else that you took away of like, NFTs were going to be a thing, or application of crypto and X is interesting to me?
Yeah, it was a lot more belief in the technical infrastructure
Yeah.
of what blockchain could do. At the time, it wasn't so much around NFTs, and that actually, very interestingly enough, I only recently have become convinced of the value of NFTs. I
Ooh,
wasn't.
let's talk about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take us through that journey. How did you
This
come
is
to that
exciting.
conclusion?
Yeah. You know, I think that I really struggled to see the best use case for NFTs. And like not to be that person to like productize or commercialize everything. Like so I don't want to do that. Like I felt when I first like started to see NFTs and people were talking about it, I can understand it as like a technology. I can understand it as like a collectible, right? I can understand it logically as its appeal. But what I couldn't understand and what I just basically couldn't get on board with were the economics around it.
Mm,
You know, as someone coming from a financial background and someone who like studies like the market all the time, right, and
Yeah.
constantly in touch with that, I just couldn't, I just could not get over the price fluctuations around NFTs, and especially as like as an emerging thing, like it just made no sense to me. I didn't see the how it was going to be sustainable like at all, and it just made me very wary of it long term.
right.
Um, and then I started to do deep dive like more and more and more in like the communities, etc. Um, and it's now as I start to really see more applications around like NFTs. You know, gaming like being one of the strongest applications that I see, period, and the one that excites me the most.
Yep.
Now I'm like, you know, so bullish. But really it was like the market kind of sentiment around it was very worrying for me when I
Mm.
first started to see them.
And what time, like what time frame are we talking? Just in the last year?
I'd say it's it's within the last year that I'm like, okay, I'm bullish on NFTs.
And so you're
Mm.
thinking, what I'm hearing you say is gaming was one of them. Maybe the passion around the community, getting into these discords, getting into the community, seeing how excited people are about this. Anything else there that you want to add as to what really kind of flipped the switch in your mind?
Yeah, definitely gaming as a use case. I think understanding more about the community aspect of it too,
Hmm.
in the sense of like things like working with creators, like what it gave creators the ability to do, right? To be able to own assets, to be able to actually again productize and commercialize like that thing for them, like
Hmm.
huge like use case for me, or
Yep.
value add when I think about NFTs. So it was really more like understanding the use cases and away from like kind of the surface level of like people being like, oh, look how much my NFT is, right? And like not really like peeling back and knowing all the use cases.
Right. No,
I think, yeah,
I like that. And so I now get to go on my famous brand 3.0 rant because I'm a marketing brand guy. So hear me out on this one. This is what I think the real power of NFTs are. And really what I like to, everyone says Web 3.0, I like to say brand 3.0, because it's really the first time I've ever seen where, and you're doing it right now. And you're a prime example. You have a multi-billion-dollar worldwide company. You are creating an NFT project that is able to create on its own brand, build a small, tight-knit community, and that they're not getting any of that advertising shoved down their throat, right? You're being able to build this really cool community based around a common belief in NFT gaming, and then you will be able to take that community and say, hey, by the way, we actually offer all of this other stuff. And now it's not this, how much marketing spend have I spent to get some 0.002% click through rate, and it's going to cost me $100 million to do it. It just totally flips the way that you think about marketing and branding on its head. What are your thoughts there?
I have a lot of thoughts on this,
Yes.
and it's very timely because like these are active conversations that we have internally.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
when we start to look at marketing, when we start to look at community. I actually had the pleasure of speaking at a summit in the last couple of weeks, and one of the topics there was around like marketing and Web3 space, and what it means for brands. Um, and it's so interesting, right? Because it's like you have Web2 companies who have their traditional ways of marketing. They
Mm-hmm.
have the traditional metrics that they're looking at to hit like traditional KPIs and goals, right?
Yep.
And then you come in with this new thing, right? Like, and I'm using us as an example here, right? So we have this, essentially a new brand that we created within AB InBev, right? This is what it is. It's a game, but it's a brand of
Yep.
CryptoTitans. An
Absolutely.
independent brand,
100%.
yeah, that we've launched within the last year within a collection of some of the biggest brands you have in the world, right?
Yeah.
Launched it out into the market that we have had, little to no experience in, um, and we've been able to do things with that independent new brand that we were not able to do with some of our biggest global brands, right? Which is, if you think about it, it's absolutely insane. It's crazy to think to be able to do that. And it's because, to your point, like completely flipping the conversation around like what marketing really means. Like, what is the value of what you're bringing? What does community really mean? When you start to look at this Web3 space, and it's so different to anything that we've seen before. Um, and like that is these learnings that we're taking from CryptoTitans for us, and to think about other brands for other Web2 companies, like it's pretty incredible. It's very different to anything we've seen.
So what are some takeaways that you've had so far from
Yeah,
building like what are, and obviously you don't have to share like all the secret sauce, but what are themes of hey, what we're doing here with a Discord or community makes sense for our Web 2 brands? Is there any synergies there or things that you can talk about?
yeah. I think one of the biggest learnings that we've seen is something that you kind of alluded to as well, which is like people don't want ads. Like people don't want to like have things in their face anymore, right? Like the
Yeah.
way that we think about marketing and the way we think about appealing to like a new generation of people has totally changed, and it's as if like we didn't see it, it just like suddenly happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, like just like it's so like toxic, the idea of just like marketing straight to people, so no one wants that. We talk about Discord being like a space where it's you're able to have almost like one-on-one like engagements and communications like with your consumer essentially, right? Which seems as if it's something that's going to be time consuming, but it's like what I explained and what I talked about at this summit is that it's real-time feedback on everything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what you're able to get from the communities that you build. And like we talk about having like real-time feedback, or we talk about having data, and like one of the things that I personally like have such an issue with is like we rely so much on getting data from tech. Like that's what we rely on. We rely so much from getting data from products,
Hmm.
rather than people, right? Like we get it from like the people who engage with that product, and like it's as if we've forgotten just how to like talk to our consumers, like
Yeah.
verbally communicate, like
Yeah.
just ask them a question.
Yep.
Yep.
And like going into Discord and being able to say like to a group of people, how do you feel about X, and getting a real-time response to that, like X is like something. It's as if like that's not how we like used to communicate. Like people are learning to speak again for the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They're like, wait a
And
sec,
that's
you care about what I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, that's honestly I think like been really like game changing, just to see that like how much it means for people to have genuine communication. Like when we with this CryptoTitans project, when I come into the chat, and I start talking to the community, it's like people get hyped because like we actually talk to them,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
a team of people like
Yeah.
within this like massive corporation. It's like no, it's just me ads behind a computer wanting to speak to you guys and just see what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
I think like that has been really quite inspirational. And then it's you gotta almost take the product, or you gotta take like revenue or top line like out of the equation, right?
Yeah.
It's like that kind of formula that we've had for so long of like you know um ads plus money equals a sale,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then
Right.
that formula, it's like you just got to take it out, and it's just like
Yeah.
what you actually need like, as the winning formula is like good product,
Yeah.
you know, genuine connection
Yeah.
equals
Yeah.
brand loyalty, like, and then whatever that means later down the line is like what you need. Like that's the metric you should be tracking. Is like
Mm-hmm.
how many people actually want to talk to you, and it's
Absolutely.
getting that goes naturally anyway.
This
I
is,
love that.
yeah. God, man, I wish every like Fortune 500 company board was listening to this because, it's so obvious, but yet every time it's spoken to people who are, once you get to a certain part beyond middle management, they hear this stuff and it's like their mind explodes because what do you mean just talk to the consumer? And it's it's insane because it always works. This has never failed. And yet it's always a fight to do this on a large scale.
Yeah.
Um, I remember one of the most famous studies about this was actually was done by Ford, right? And what had happened is they were selling trucks, but sales were dropping, and they kept bringing in these um, not what do you call them, groups of people for like
Focus
survey
groups.
groups. Focus. Thank you. Focus groups. That's the exact word. They brought in focus groups, right? And finally, there was a middle manager who was a woman at Ford who said, "Why is it every time you bring in a focus group, you only bring in men?" And their
Mm.
answer was, "Well, it's mostly guys buying our trucks." So she went out and asked the people in the focus group and said, "When you're buying a car on the lot, do you go by yourself?" And almost all of them universally said, "No, I go with my spouse." And then they say, "An honest question, when you're buying that car, who has the most influence over you on the purchase decision? And all of them said, my spouse, right? And it's like, by the way, the studies all show this, right? Women make 80% of all consumer purchasing decisions.
Mm.
So she says, why don't we do the same focus group, but instead of having these guys here, bring their spouses?
Yeah.
Mm.
So suddenly they get a new focus group. And here's what's interesting. They have a new model vehicle, one that hasn't been released yet, and they let the women just rip it apart. What's the problem? And all the obvious things, it's hard to get into because I can't reach the handle to step up into this truck, right? It's the little things like that. And all of a sudden, the engineers are scribbling notes frantically, and they started adjusting this, and the sales skyrocketed. Why? Because now, when the couple goes to look at the truck, and the wife gets in it and likes it, what do you think happens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like and that's just one specific example, but it's a perfect example of what you're saying. All they really did was talk to the actual end user and find out who's making this purchase decision and what do they want? How do we make this product better? And they'll tell you. And it's like it's very interesting to me because I love having these conversations. It seems again, it's people act like it's profound, but it's really really simple stuff.
Yep.
And Web3 is forcing people to kind of open their eyes up to this because the end user does get a say. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all, what just sparked in my mind. You're probably familiar with this ads, but I got a certification in design thinking. I had one of my mentors at one of my previous jobs. She was one of the head professors at the D School at Stanford. Are you familiar with all the design thinking methodology, which is kind of along these lines?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went through all this, and honestly, we're gonna record. This is coming a clip out of it. We all three need to go to the execs at Discord and say, you're thinking about your marketing and messaging wrong. Because you know what Discord is? Discord is the world's best, most organic, informative focus group tool that ever existed. And they haven't even thought about that until
Yeah.
now. Huh? What do you think about that, Ads?
I I think it's a fantastic point, right? And like it's even something that we talk about within CryptoTitans, right? Like that idea of like it is like it's a marketing tool, like in many ways too. Like if you choose to use it in like a very organic sense, um, I think it's very clever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so let's
Yeah.
use that to segue in because I want to get a
Yes.
solid,
Let's get to Crypto
solid
Titans.
time on the project. Take us through because I'm gonna be bugging you, but I think I would love to make more content with you in the future, and we don't have to be a live stream, but it would be so fun to talk about corporate structure and bringing this thing to life. I mean, that alone could be an amazing web series. But let's talk more about the project. So you get it greenlit. You had mentioned that you found this leader within this massive billion-dollar corporation that understood Web3, the power of it. It's all signed off. It's on board, and we're ready to do this. Take us through. Before we kind of go in deeper dive into the project, we like to start out with kind of 2 to 3 minute pitch. What is CryptoTitans, and why should somebody, other than you being an amazing person and leading the charge, should I spend my hard-earned money on CryptoTitans when there's a million other projects out there that I could be interested in?
Yeah, 100%. So quick 3 minute pitch, right? So CryptoTitans, it's a play-to-own turn-based battle game that we're setting in a distant world that we're calling Irio. So when you think about like some of the gameplay around CryptoTitans, we do liken it very much to Pokemon in terms of style and in terms of some of the game mechanics that you'll see as well, or even like games like Axie Infinity. We've got Titan NFT characters. You play with these characters in the game, and they're the ones that are actually battling within this world of Irio. The Titan characters that we have, these NFTs, they're all unique. and they're all unique as a result of DNA combinations that come from 8 primordial titans of chaos and order. So this informs some of the lore and narrative that we have around CryptoTitans. When we say that every single titan is unique, we mean their appearance is unique. So they're a combination of these primordials, so they all have different traits attached to them. They all have different powers. They all have different weapons, and some of these traits will come out during the gameplay as well. We have 3 different game modes for CryptoTitans. The game is currently being built at the moment. We're working with different gaming studios, and it's set for release Q1 2023. So as you go through the game, you've got the 3 different modes, and I can talk about each of those in detail a little bit later. But the first is just like an explore mode where you're going through the world of Irio. This is a free to play, but you'll be able to understand more about the game mechanics in this mode. The second is like the main battle mode that you have with CryptoTitans. So this will be like a 1v1, and this is where we say it's likened very much to Pokemon. The premise of that battle mode is try to reduce your opponent's HP to zero, and you're selecting different powers and weapons to do that as you go through the game. You'll be leveling up your Titan in this battle mode. And then the last mode that we have for CryptoTitans, the game, is the tournament mode. And that's where we really start to leverage our brands. We're really talking about Web2 coming into the Web3 space. And we're thinking about how CryptoTitans is able to move into an esports arena. So in this tournament mode, every single tournament will actually be a branded tournament. So it means that each tournament is going to be a totally different experience depending on who is sponsoring that tournament. And really crucially, it means that we're able to leverage on the assets that brands can bring to these tournaments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to bring like large like prize pools, right, for these tournaments. Being able to actually work with us to make one-off branded assets, for example, for these tournaments is something that we can do as we start to really sponsor these different arenas. And like these are globally ranked tournaments, right? Which means when we talk about scalability and the idea of really bringing the masses into Web3, it's a strong vehicle for us, right? Because we really see that brands are a familiar item for people. They have the scalability, they have like the globality, they have the resources to really help us to help on that mission, right? That mission
Mm-hmm.
and that vision that we all should have within Web3, which is trying to onboard the masses.
Right. I love that 3-minute pitch. And what's interesting and where my mind immediately goes is my assumption is this tournament function. Are you able, in essence, as a own startup within In-Bev, to be able to shop these tournament ideas to In-Bev's brands?
Yeah. So I mean, so In-Bev has like 600 brands underneath us,
Right.
maybe even more brands that I don't even know that we
It's
have.
insane. It's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we work with non-alcoholic brands because this is a game that is open to all.
Okay.
It's not that this is a game for kids, but we also don't want to have to age gate this game at any point, right? So it's
Got it.
really working with
Makes
the
sense.
non-alcoholic brands. And we have huge non-alcoholic brands underneath us as well. Huge global non-alc brands. So we do have the ability to work with our brands, and we have actually announced some partnerships with our own brands, particularly in LATAM. So we have partnered with Pony Malta. They have a whole gaming ecosystem in Colombia. We partnered with Guaraná Antarctica. That's the biggest soft drink in Brazil by quite a long way. So yes, we are leveraging our own brands, and crucially, we're also leveraging external brands as well. Right? We see this as really a way that we can start to onboard other brands into the space, right? Because one of the things about being a brand, and I can say this from experience and what we've seen within AB and Bev is it's difficult to enter the Web3 space. Like if you don't know how to do it,
Right.
there is quite a chance that you might get it wrong. And B, it's difficult. Like it's a completely different language that you need to speak. And to some of the things that we talked about in the Web3 space, by doing these tournaments, we're able to to give a vehicle for these brands and these Web2 companies to really start to move into this Web3 space, right? Like sponsor a tournament, get involved in a tournament, understand the audience that you're working with, start to understand gamers. What is the value proposition here, right?
Right.
So it gives a vehicle for Web2 into Web3.
Yeah, and I think, what's brilliant about this and that I have not seen yet is you are the billion-dollar company, but yet you've treated an NFT project like a startup, which it should be. That let's be honest, an NFT is a startup. It's a different way. It's a new form of a Kickstarter in essence as well. You're now then going to be able to have this conversation immediately with your own brands, but then also have that Web 2 to Web 2 conversation to say, hey, this shit is possible. We just did it, and here's how we did it. And that is the conversations between narratives like this, and then when, the Amazons of the world just immediately expose, 300 million people to hitting a couple buttons, you got a crypto wallet and using your credit card. That's more of on the technology side, right? That's what's going to evolve this space. We could sit here all day and argue whether we're going to like it or not, because I think it's a very magical time right now. But I think this is the first time I've actually heard a Web 2 brand doing it the right way. Maddie, what are your thoughts?
Well, I certainly think it's being done the correct way given the brand and given what you have. Like, for example, when you said stage 3 with the tournaments, right? If this was just Crypto Titans and I had no idea what the association was, my hesitancy would be, okay, well, it's easy to say tournaments, but having put on events, it's hard, right? And you're right, finding sponsors and finding the right kind of companies that want to be involved in something like that is very difficult. But when it's already under an umbrella and you can establish some credibility there, that's a vastly different proposition, right? And so now all of a sudden, what you said was stage 3 with tournaments, what would have been something that would have caused hesitation for me is actually one of the things I think is the most exciting part about the project, because when you talk about a prize pool, that's going to be the easy part, right? I mean, being able to put something together, which immediately creates value to want to have one of these, right? Because it's like, what am I going to win if I go to some generic project that's doing a play to earn or play to win, whatever it might be, game, but there's no backing. They're just making an empty promise somewhere in the future there will be utility. This is just very different, and I think it adds a level of credibility.
Yeah.
So I think for what it is, it's being very it's put together in a very smart way.
Yeah, Ads, what are your any thoughts around this conversation?
No, I mean, I'm glad that that's coming across, right? Because we really thought about this strategy,
Yeah.
and what we wanted to offer to the community.
Yeah.
Something that we've changed with CryptoTitans is like our fundamental offering of what we want to do. When we first started with CryptoTitans, it was actually a play to earn game. Right? We wanted people to be rewarded for doing something that they enjoy. Right? So we wanted people to be essentially paid for gaming. Right?
Yeah.
Like we made the decision to move away from play to earn around about May, and we made that decision because we were seeing some things in the market that we didn't agree with, right? In terms of like sustained value,
right,
to the holders, right? And we just felt we can't launch something into the market or game with tokenomics behind it that we do not stand by 100%, right? That's
yeah, you got to be an expert in tokenomics to actually make it work, right?
As a team, we were like, first of all, we just did not feel qualified to make the right decision.
Right.
And then, even bringing in other people, we didn't feel that the decision was like right to even do it. Right, it was very difficult. We felt to do it.
Yep.
So we just kind of took it off the table, right? Of like, okay, let's not focus on trying to sustain the value of a token. Let's actually, first of all, like build a good game, right? And focus on like what problem are we solving here with this game? And the problem that we're solving with the game is around ownership, right? That was it. That's why we're building it in the first place. Okay, so let's attach the value of this game to the actual ownership, right? good problem solver. So that's why we shifted to play to own. So everything within the game itself is about like play the game, right? Like level up your Titan, get more assets for your Titan. The assets that you win within the game, you earn them. You don't
Yeah.
buy them. You
Yeah.
earn them through playing, right? So
Yeah.
it's like get skilled within CryptoTitans, increase the value of your Titan, use your Titan to be able to enter tournaments and have access to these prize pools, right? That you wouldn't have access to before. And
Right.
that's how you earn, right? That's the value that we bring there.
Right. And where do you see this secondary market on OpenSea to buy Titans, to buy items? Are you creating your own marketplace? How does that work?
We're creating our own marketplace, actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. And this is all run on Ethereum, or do you Polygon, or how do you work in that?
So we're on Solana.
Okay.
Oh, you're a sole
But
project.
yeah,
That's right.
yes, we weren't originally a sole project. We were actually when we first started. Again, like decisions that we made and shifted as we went, into this journey. We actually started off on Polygon, um, and we moved over to Solana. And it's funny, we moved over to Solana even though it was more difficult for us. It was more challenging for us in terms of a build. Um, and we had to relearn like a lot of things as a team, like going into and building on Solana.
Yeah.
But we made that move because three reasons. The community of Solana. We felt that the community was really strong. Right, we were engaging just with some really strong projects. We had really good vibes from the Soul community,
Mm-hmm.
and we wanted to take a gamble, right, on that community aspect with Soul.
Yeah.
The second reason is we're bullish on the gaming environment of Solana long term.
Mm-hmm.
We think it's just starting, and we want to be a part of that, right? So for us building a game and Sol, it also made sense.
Yep.
And then lastly, the price point, right? Like I've talked a little bit about us building this and saying that like this is something that is scalable. This is something that is global for us as a company and as AB and Bev. And part of that mission really comes down to making sure that it is affordable for everybody,
Yes.
right? It's
Yes.
about accessibility all the
Yep.
time,
Yep.
as a Web3 community. And like a big part of that is just make it affordable.
Yep.
And Solana allows us to do that.
Yeah, and the unaffordable things should then come from, which if this works out in theory, uh, people working hard at the game and getting the right items and building up, right? Because that time equates into money in a perfect world. So I
Yeah.
think it's the absolute right way to go. I think Solana, we have a buddy that's a huge Solana maxi, and he had always talked about gaming as the real opportunity for them. And I'm assuming, and I'm not a technical person at all, but my assumption goes immediately just to the minimal gas with the multiple transactions and stuff that you need to do.
Yeah.
Is probably one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that all makes sense. Man, it's a really interesting concept, and that it's just so cool to hear a big company being able to do something so new. Maddie, do you have any thoughts around everything we're talking about?
Yeah. Two. I have a thought and a question. The thought is, I really like how you said making it affordable globally. I think a lot of people miss that because, we get in our bubbles, right? And even from London to San Francisco, you went from one of the nicer, let's just say, standard of living areas to another very expensive and nice standard of living area. But it's very easy to forget. And what I think it's really cool because you have life experiences that have allowed you to travel all over the world. But for a lot of people, it's easy. I mean, I'm sitting right out of Washington D.C., right? And I'm so insulated from a lot of these things. When somebody says, "Ah, it's point 0.1 ETH, it's point 0.2 ETH, it's point 0.5 ETH," things like that. These are decisions that for me are one thing, but for a person in the Philippines, uh, it's not right. It's it's like a car, and so it's just massive decisions that they have to make, and that was something that first was exposed to me actually, Mike, through Hate Beast, just seeing all the different people in there from where they were around the world.
Oh yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
really, if you're going to be a global brand and try to build a global game, you have to think globally. And I think that in itself is something that a lot of people miss. And I think that
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
something that's really cool.
Yeah.
My question is, you have some first of all, I mean, your background is fantastic, right? I mean, just the stuff we talked about from academics, and not just that. I mean, yes, of course, when it comes to school and your masters and your focus and your mentors, but outside of that, you've also shown and demonstrated a fantastic ability to think in a very mature, forward thinking way. My question is how much of what's happening with Crypto Titans, how much influence do you have in these moves, in these plays? For example, moving from Polygon to Sol, or saying, maybe not play to earn. Are a lot of these big decisions heavily influenced by your insight, or are you just one of many that gets kind of a vote? How does that work?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, and we have a really strong team that's working on Crypto Titans. We have a core team. And we have we've got a few people, but like core decision makers.
Mhm.
Um, it's down to a core team of five. Um,
Okay.
I I lead this project, right? Crypto Titans is it's my thing, right?
Yep.
Like I came in like really leading Web3 for AB and Bev, but Crypto Titans is like 99.9% of my focus, and I have
Got it.
other things I'm supposed to focus on, but I don't because it's Crypto Titans
Yeah.
is like it's the thing, right? That I believe in the most, that I'm bullish on, and my attention, my heart is here with this project. Um, yeah, we have a really strong core team of five. In terms of, I guess, my influence on this project, um, it's pretty high. I don't know how
Yeah.
to say it. It's this is my project. If
No,
if
that
it's
that
something,
answers it.
it's
Yeah.
in it's we'll do it, right. But I
Yeah.
don't make decisions in a silo.
Sure.
I stay very connected to the team. We talk things through, but I'm also very like forceful in what I think is right for this project.
Yeah.
I have been very forceful and vocal as within AB and Bev as the things that I think that we should do,
Yep.
and directions that I think that we should take, especially with like our strategy long term, what's
Yeah.
going to work well, what's not, um, and I'm okay to like say my opinion on how we
Perfect.
need to
And
move.
they respond to your opinion well?
Yes, I've been very fortunate again with
That's
AB and
awesome.
Bev, who I'm getting to work with, and like I've I'm able to work with like pretty senior people, like, well, very
Yeah.
senior people within the company, is like really a very close working relationship with this project, and like, I feel very like my views are listened to a lot.
I love this. And let me tell you, the reason I asked that, it wasn't kind of just in its own little vacuum. The reason I asked that is this, because having a chance to go through and get your Star Wars episode 1, 2, and 3, right? What's happened I think it's very easy to have a high level of trust in your competency. Like I said, just a lot of your decisions, the way you were making things, even your quote to say, be comfortable in taking risks and things that you believe in. You have a strong um, moral compass, a strong character, but then also you have the work ethic, you have the intelligence, and you have this forward thinking ability. What I think is interesting is that knowing that not only is this your project, but you're not you have a team, so it's not like it's just you, right? You're getting feedback, you're willing to hear what's there, and you have a strong connection and influence with the essentially the mothership, so to speak. That to me personally, as just an outside, this is me hearing this and hearing from you for the first time, gives me a tremendous amount of confidence in the project because if that's how it's being done and it's being run, then you're willing to make pivots and you're thinking long term on how this is going to work. And so I just think that that's really cool because sometimes we'll meet somebody on the show who's an amazing person but has very little control, right?
Yes.
And that's how we all feel in that corporate environment, by the way, because here you were in a corporate environment and you said that you felt stifled, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
now you're in a place where you can thrive. And I just think it's really cool because now you can put forth the effort, the work ethic, and all of the things you bring to the table, and we can see it thrive. So
Yeah.
I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great comment, and I think that's actually a great way to kind of wind down. I want to be cognizant of your time. It's been a phenomenal conversation. How we like to close it out is we have 2 more questions. Feel we can keep this short. First question is, do you have any questions for us? Because believe it or not, we've been talking for an hour and 45 minutes at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, firstly, I can't believe that the time has gone so quickly. But yeah, I do actually have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
Sure.
The first is around what do you take away from these? Like when you meet these founders or you talk through these projects, because it's so incredibly valuable to be able to have space and time to actually talk through a whole host of things and not just about the project.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly grateful for what you've done over the last couple of hours almost here on this space. And I just want to hear from you what you get from it too.
That is one of the better questions we've had. I can go quick.
Sure.
Top things that I think about all of the time is one of the things that I've noticed as a repeat pattern is we talk to really successful people that get to the same mentality in very different ways. And the same mentality as in, what makes people successful, consistency over time, taking risk, being self-aware, being comfortable in your own skin, having a strong support network, all of these things that we've talked about. What's awesome and what I love what I know will never get old is, we just talked to you. Your life story is so drastically different than the person that we talked to on Tuesday. But at the same time, we have very similar principles. So that's one, and it's always fascinating, and that's why it makes me tick, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I love it. So that's one takeaway. Number 2, unfortunately, the space, 98% of it is bullshit. There's a lot of people, and this isn't particularly on our guests. This is just more of like talking to the people that are actually doing it the right way, and then all of the bullshit that you see on Twitter. People try to mystify this space in a way, I think, to keep the bag for themselves. And in essence, is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say
a lot of smoke and mirrors.
I'm trying to say the smoke and mirrors exist because people don't, like in any other industry, want to lose money, right? In this space, just like any other space, to be successful, consistent work over time. You're wasting your money on these influencers that are asking for 5 ETH to do some, shitty ass video. 300,000 followers on Twitter overnight is bullshit. And all of these things and these metrics, just again, like we were talking about marketing, the metrics in this space alone are crap. And nobody's doing it right. And what we do, I think, is the only way that you can truly understand if a project's going to be good or not. Because think of all the big past hype projects that have been out there. 98% of them don't exist, or were just basically ways to make a lot of money in a quick amount of time, right? So those are my thoughts. Maddie?
Yeah, I'll be much faster. My first thought is exactly what Mike's was. So I was smiling because he was saying the same thing, which is ultimately, we're passionate about people, not projects. people are interesting. People have unique backgrounds and upbringings and stories, and it's fun sharing those stories. And quite frankly, the space and people in general need to hear more success stories from a different and diverse crowd of people to see we're more alike than we are different. And when you focus on the right principles and ideals, you'll be successful. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about a background or a language that you speak or who you are or all these other little categories we love to sprinkle down and put over top of people. Um, Winners do certain things, and it's consistent across the board. And the more we do this, the more people start learning that, because quite frankly, not all of us, some people were, but not everybody was brought up in a situation in a home where they were taught these type of things. And school doesn't do a very good job of preparing youth for what really makes someone successful, right? They're supposed to give us some fundamentals, um, but the stuff that you learn by being mentored by a Tim Draper is like, you're never going to get that even if you go to Stanford and then Harvard like he did, right? You're just not going to get it there. He got it because he was the third generation venture capitalists, of all successful venture capitalists, you know what I mean? And so there's something to be said about that, and I'm hoping to kind of expose that. And then ultimately the second reason is Mike and I love talking to people. This is fascinating to us. We love meeting new people, making new friends, and talking to the people who are movers and shakers. I just think it's a fascinating conversation. I genuinely enjoy it.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for answering that.
Appreciate it. And then our final question is,
Well, wait. Did you have another question? You said you had a couple questions.
oh
just
yeah,
in
yeah.
case.
I just did have another quick question.
Sorry,
Sure.
totally.
No, just very quickly. So, is there a space where have you shared your stories as well?
Not like once or two. No, not really.
Mm.
Sometimes some people will ask, but yeah, not on a long form like this.
Right. Not long form. We're open.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
And then I appreciate these questions. They're fantastic. And I want it, but I'm horrible with time, and I know we only have 5 minutes left. So I'm gonna fast forward to the one last question, and then Maddie and I will say our goodbyes. I'm assuming you've done hundreds of these, of AMAs or conversations, whatever you want to call them, by now. We just like to get feedback on how you think this went to your typical AMA or Twitter space that you've done.
Oh, I mean, this was totally different. Like I said, the space and the opportunity to actually feel like, sharing more of myself, right, even away from the project, was really nice. To do that, right? Like that's actually something we talk about a lot, even with this project. Is like we really want to know the community, and we want the community to know us as people, right?
Yeah.
Like away from the project. We think it's really like very much to some of the things that you both say, like it's the people that make these projects, right? The people that I get to work with and the Titans, like the influence they have on me in my life is like unparalleled. And we want the community to feel that these people, us, right, our hearts into this. And I think it's something that like people should do more, right? Like we always talk about it, right? The success of companies is down to the founders. People talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And there really should be spaces where you just get to know more about the team.
Yeah.
And yet you just get to hear it from the founders, like hear where their heads at, hear what their journey is. Like you ask for it, like people ask for it, or people demand that in a lot of other spaces. And I think it's nice that there are opportunities for people to do it in Web3. There needs to be more.
Well, I appreciate that feedback. It's
Thank you.
similar feedback that we've had. And yeah, Maddie, I'll let you go and then I'll close it out. But this has been amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a great conversation. I knew this was going to be a good conversation, and I just thank you for being open about your backstory and how you got to where you are today. I really think more people need to hear these stories because it really gives people an idea of your foundation, how you ended up here, and not only that, but it's like when you make a decision, this isn't just some decision that you decided to make because you heard about NFTs, because you watched TikTok three weeks ago. You know what I mean? You have a whole series that has brought you into Web3, into a love of crypto, not only with a background of investing, but with unbelievable mentorship and good decision and good family and all of these things come together. And now you're putting together a project with all of those traits. And again, like I said earlier, I think it gives people a lot of confidence in this. And you're studying under a person who, at a time when Mike and I were spending $10 a month just to use email, had an idea to get involved and invest in this company called Hotmail, which was free email, which was crazy at the time, right? Nobody thought you should
Right.
have free email. It was nuts. And so he's a forward thinker, like you said, Tesla, I mean, SpaceX, all of these different things. If that's what's happening, and now you're saying you've shifted to NFTs, there's a future in this, and that gaming's the way. I think that says a lot about your insight as to where this is going to go. And I think a lot of people should be encouraged by that. So thank you for taking the time and sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And
It's
I'll
been so-
follow that up by everything Maddie just said. One, thank you for the quick turnaround. You're incredibly busy. You're minting in 2 days. It just goes to show more about your character that you took the time to do this because you care about getting these real messages out. And I knew when we had the AMA together, I was like, Ads seems like a person that would enjoy this, and it seems like you have. And I just appreciate. I am always amazed. Another thing you asked, and just kind of add to your question, I'm amazed by how vulnerable people can get and how much they share when we literally met 5 minutes before we got online live,
Yeah.
right? So I just appreciate the generosity when it comes to being open. And then finally, I really mean this when I say this. You're absolutely by far one of the top projects out there that people should be paying attention to, and it's very simple in my mind. And you said it clearly a little bit ago, which was you changed to soul. You changed from play to earn to play to own. But you did this because you're not somebody that has a buddy that is sitting in a basement figuring out how to make money in an NFT project. You're wedded to a huge billion-dollar brand. There's good checks and balances in place, and that's going to make you continue to thrive in addition to all of the other amazing things that you bring. So thank you so much, and we just appreciate the hell out of you, and I cannot wait to continue to grow our friendship.
Absolutely. Just second all of that. It's been such fun. I really have enjoyed myself. Just thanks for the opportunity. Thank you so much for the space. And, I hope we could do more,
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
This is not the first, I promise you that.
But we know you have another meeting you have to, or another space you have to get into, so we don't want to hold you up.
Yep.
But thank you again.
And with
Yeah,
that
thank
being said, the Midlife Crisis crew is out. We'll be back Sunday night with the 808 Club. We love you all. Midlife Crisis.